Joining us now, campaign manager, Donald Trump for President campaign. We're going right to the top of the campaign to find out whether this thing is real. Corey Lewandowski. Corey, great to have you with us.
John, I'm a big fan. You know I have been for a long time, and it's a pleasure to be on your show today.
Okay, man. Number one thing, happy Father's Day. You got a big family in New Hampshire. Happy Father's Day. Are you going to be able to get home for the weekend?
I'm going to try and fly up. I'm here in New York today at Trump Tower, planning out and executing the campaign. I'm going to try and fly home, see the kids. I've got 4 kids between the ages of 4 and 8 years old, so I'd like to spend a little time with them on Sunday and be back here Monday for another full week. So I'm hoping to get up home this weekend.
All right. We'll see if you can get home for Father's Day. I'm going to be home for Father's Day, so we're looking forward to that. Now, Corey, you made a big step joining the Trump for President campaign. You're the head guy, their campaign manager. You spent a very, very productive career with Americans for Prosperity. I was one of your biggest fans there. As you know, you spent time in New Hampshire and then at the corporate executive level. What inspired Corey Lewandowski to leave Americans for Prosperity, a great organization, founding sponsor of our show, as you're aware, and go and run the Trump for President campaign?
Well, you know, AFP is just a great organization. I'm so honored and proud to have been part of them for so long. You know, I was there when we were basically standing the company up and spent 7 years helping to build that into what is one of the premier grassroots organizations in the country. But I got a phone call because Mr. Trump had actually come to an AFP event in New Hampshire that I had put together about a year ago, and I got to meet him, and you know, I thought he was great. And then I got a phone call from a mutual friend and said, "Hey, Mr. Trump wants you to come to New York and talk to him. Would you mind?" And who says no to Donald Trump? So, of course, I said, look, I'll come to New York, I'll sit down, I'll have a conversation. That was at the very beginning of this year. And at that time, he convinced me that he was very, very seriously looking at running for president. And he said, Corey, I'd like you to come and join me and help me build out a team. I've seen what you've done at AFP. They've had great success. Would you come over here? And, you know, he may be the greatest salesman on the planet because unbeknownst to my wife or anyone else, I accepted the job on the spot and then had to tell my wife afterwards, hey, I just took a new job. But it was a fantastic opportunity, and it was something that looking in his eyes and listening to him and understanding his true passion to change the way our country is working, I was sold instantly and said, it's time to do something different. I love AFP, but I've got to go do this for the best of our country.
Well, it sounds like you made a great decision. We're with the campaign manager for the Donald J. Trump for President campaign, Corey Lewandowski. Corey, a lot of people have been saying that the Trump for President effort is not a serious campaign. It's a publicity stunt, etc. You know, I was just mocking some of the talking heads on Fox News when Trump announced, and I was saying this the other day, I turned on Fox News that afternoon, and the usual suspects, George Will, Charles Krathheimer, they were going absolutely bananas, saying this is not a serious campaign. It diminishes the field. It's a sideshow. It's a comedy act. It's so that he can increase his TV ratings. I don't happen to believe that's true because I've had him on my show, and I think he's going to win. But that's just me. Tell our audience, from your perspective, the campaign manager, is this a serious campaign, and are you guys in it to win it?
Well, let me say this. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a very serious guy. You know, number one, first and foremost. But not just me. Let's look at the team that Trump has put together to actually put this in place. And strip the name Trump off for a second. And, you know, if you remember the old Coke-Pepsi challenge, a blind taste test, right. Let's put the Trump organization and this campaign against any other campaign in the country and see what is defined as, quote, real. So, okay, Mr. Trump doesn't need to go and beg special interests and lobbyists for money, which all the other campaigns are doing because he can write a check. Makes us a real campaign from a financial perspective, number one. Number two, let's look at the team that's been put in place in Iowa as an example. Chuck Laudner, who was the guy who won the campaign on behalf of Rick Santorum 4 years ago in the Iowa caucus, is with Trump. He's not with anybody else. He's with Trump. We've got 6 full-time guys out there. The next biggest campaign is the Walker campaign. They've got 2 full-time guys out there. Let's go to the next state, New Hampshire. Trump has 5 full-time guys in New Hampshire working on the ground. One of them used to be an AFP employee, actually, who's now running our effort in New Hampshire. The next biggest campaign in the state of New Hampshire, 2 full-time people. Let's look at, you know, any metric you want. Trump is in the top 10 in all of the national polls and is in third place in New Hampshire. There's a real campaign statistic. He has some of the very best political operatives in the country working on this right now, full-time, and they have been for a series of months. So by any metric, crowd size, any metric you want to put in place to measure the Trump campaign, we are at the top or near the top of every single measurement. So anything that these pundits want to say is all Washington mumbo-jumbo. He's not real. The fact is they are scared to death. There is nothing they can do to get Trump out of this race. He can and may stay, if he is not the nominee, right to the convention to take this to a floor vote. And they can't offer him an ambassadorship. They can't offer him some job down the road. He doesn't want that. He won't be beholden to special interests. He is all about doing this for the betterment of the country, and he's going to win.
This is the John Fredericks Show across Virginia Father's Day weekend. We're with Corey Lewandowski. He is the campaign manager of the Donald Trump for President campaign. Corey, how do you get into the debates?
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. You know, in order to get into the debates, there are some criteria. Number one, you have to be a declared candidate. And as of today, Scott Walker and Chris Christie are not declared candidates, so I guess they're not going to be in the debates, potentially. Donald Trump is a declared candidate, and so he meets the first criteria. Number two, you have to be in the top 10 in the national polls, of which Donald Trump consistently ranks in the top 10 of the national polls. He qualifies for that criteria. But by any criteria which the Republican National Committee or the networks have established, Mr. Trump qualifies for that. And then I hear this pushback, well, he may be taking a spot from somebody else who may be, quote-unquote, more qualified. Who is more qualified at creating jobs in this country than Donald Trump? Who is more qualified at negotiating trade deals or deals with foreign leaders than Donald Trump? So because you have a potential candidate for president who may have won elective office in one state or have potentially been elected as an elected official somewhere, what gives them that ability to be more qualified than Donald Trump? It doesn't. And so you have by far the most successful business person in the history of our country who is seeking a major party nomination running. That is a qualification in and of itself for him to be on the debate stage, and he meets every criteria and will continue to meet every criteria to be on that debate stage.
Well, listen, Corey, I think he is going to make the debates. That's number one. There's no question in my mind. You guys have just announced, and I think you're going to go up in the polls over the next several weeks pretty systematically. You know, the other thing is the fact that he is not beholden to anybody, I think is going to be a real appeal for people, especially as we look at this disastrous trade deal. And, I'm being lectured on TV by little Paul Ryan, who was a disaster as a vice presidential candidate. I think it's getting under the skin of a lot of people, and I think your candidate has an opportunity to resonate. And there's some things he says that really they might not be 100% accurate, but people understand. And I'll just give you an example. In his announcement speech, he said, you can't find any Chevrolets in Tokyo. Now, maybe there's 500 Chevrolets in Tokyo, but I think people understand, look, they're not buying our stuff. We're buying their stuff. They get the jobs. We don't have the jobs. How does that make any sense?
And this is a really important point, because what happens is in Washington, D.C., all of these individuals are beholden to these special interests. And John, here's something that your listeners know and understand. Just this week, the Club for Growth came out and attacked Donald Trump's candidacy for president. But 2 weeks ago, the president of the Club for Growth came to Trump Tower, told Mr. Trump to his face how much he appreciates all the hard work that he has done and how Washington needs a businessman like him in Washington, and they asked for $1 million. They asked for $1 million for their organization. And when Mr. Trump didn't write the check quickly enough, they turned around and attacked him. This is the typical two-faced hypocrisy of Washington, D.C., where they want to hold people that if you don't give us money, when we shake you down, we're going to go and attack you. And that is everything that is wrong with the current political system. It is time to stop being beholden to Washington's special interests. It's time to stop allowing people to make votes based on who they receive their campaign contributions from. And Mr. Trump has been very clear on this. He won't be taking money from special interests. He won't be beholden to the Washington lobbyist community. He said it in his speech that if something is wrong for the country, He doesn't care about campaign contributions or what these special interests want. He will only do what is right for the country, and it's about time someone's willing to finally do that.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's going to resonate, Corey, with a lot of people out there that's going to get under the radar screen, and I can tell you you're going to get continually attacked by the media elites, and let me tell you why, because I'm in media. Because your candidate, Mr. Trump, doesn't care what they say. And so if you're Charles Krautheimer or you're George Will or you're any of these people, you're Brit Hume, etc., okay, the fact that Trump doesn't care what they have to say drives them bananas because Fox News basically wants to determine who's going to be the nominee of the Republican Party in 2016 in Fox Studios. What Donald Trump does is he upsets that natural, in their mind, natural order of things. So you're going to get attacked constantly by the media elites, and I think you guys
here's
understand
the hypocrisy of this, and you know this. And I won't mention anybody by name over there at that media outlet, but here's what happens. Mr. Trump, would like your help. I'm trying to promote a book. Would you please tweet out this so my book sales will go through the roof? Right? Those are the private back-end conversations that those media elitists have with Trump, and then he'll do them a favor. He'll tweet out their book or whatever it may be, so their sales go up, so they can become a New York Times #1 bestseller and put money in their own pocket. And then he decides to announce, and they say, well, you're not a real candidate. Oh, this isn't serious, right? This is the problem with the elite media is, not all of them, and some of them are very fine people. They're very self-serving. When it's about them and they want to sell their books, they come and ask Mr. Trump for a favor, or, would you tweet this out because you've got 3 million Twitter followers and 5 million Facebook fans, or whatever it may be, when it's in their own best interest. But then all of a sudden, he decides he's going to be a serious candidate for president by every metric that there is. Now, all of a sudden, they don't want to take him seriously and they want to make derogatory statements. It's just a typical two-faced scenario that the American people are tired of, candidly.
Okay, when I had Donald Trump on my show about 2 weeks ago, I predicted, A, he was going to run. That I was right. Second thing I predicted is that he was going to win New Hampshire. Now you just got in. You're third in the polls in New Hampshire. You got the best organization in New Hampshire. I think you're going to win New Hampshire. Assuming you win that, how does Donald Trump become the nominee for the Republicans in 2016? How does that math work?
So here's the great part about the Trump messaging. It is what the mainstream American worker actually agrees with. The United States is having their lunch eaten by China and Mexico and Russia, right, and Japan, and it's time to make our country great again. That's the slogan of this campaign. And if we can take those people who fundamentally agree with Trump that it's time to make America great again, which, don't forget, 50% of the registered voters don't even show up on Election Day anymore because they don't care. They're so disenfranchised. They're so upset with their choices. And they come to the polls, which Trump brings them out. He brings a whole different group of people to the polls. Then Trump wins because it's the right message for America. So in general, most of the time you'll say, hey, people don't participate in the process. And if you ask a person on the street, hey, who do you like, Mr. A or Mr. B? They'd say it's the lesser of two evils. That's not the case with Trump. They love the straight talk. They love that they get it exactly like it is. He says the same things on the stage that people are saying in their living rooms. We need better jobs. We need to reduce the unemployment. It's not 5%, it's 20%. We need people to stop flooding in to our borders. We need a wall across our southern border to protect our country and make sure Americans have jobs first. Now, he is for legal immigration. It's the illegal immigration that we have to stop, and I think people respect that. Mm-hmm. And he says it like it is. He doesn't sugarcoat it, and that's what the American people want. So if those people continue to resonate with his message, then they show up at the polls, which have never happened. Trump is the Republican nominee and ultimately the next president of the United States. How
are you going to appeal to Democrats and independents?
It's the same message, right? It's not. This is the great part about the message. This isn't a Republican message. This isn't a Democrat message or an independent message. This is a message for Americans. Don't you want your country to be great again? Do you really think that there is a potential candidate out there or a current candidate that can negotiate a deal better than Trump on behalf of our country? The answer is no. Do you think that there is a candidate out there who's running other than Trump that will stop the waste, the fraud, and the abuse in the federal government system? The answer is no. If you look at what has happened to our veterans and the VA scandal, nothing has been fixed in this.
Zero.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And what you know under the Trump administration, what would happen immediately? People would be fired, they'd be held accountable, and we would make sure that veterans would have access to care in any hospital at any time. That's a priority. You have to take care of the people who have taken care of this country. And these politicians who are all talk and no action talk about things for a week or 2 weeks and nothing ever gets done. It is time to change that mindset.
Now, at the end of the day, one of the things that Trump said in his announcement, another thing I think resonated, and he said it on my show when he was on a couple of weeks ago, he said, John, politicians got us in this mess. I don't think they're going to be able to get us out of that. I think there's a lot of people that are saying, maybe the guy's onto something. Let me just ask you something else. We've got about 2 minutes, minute and a half, Corey. A lot of my listeners are really upset about the fact that we had this landslide, landmark, watershed election in the midterms in 2014, put 9 new Republican senators in, got reinforcements in the House, another 13 Republicans, watershed change election. 6 months down the pike, nothing's changed. People are frustrated. How would Trump address that? And you have a minute.
This is the big difference, right? You've got politicians who are all talk and no action. Is just typical. And so what happens is they say, we're going to go and change Washington. They get there and they become part of the Washington problem. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Look at the trade deal, right? This is a typical example of these politicians who want to do what's best for them and not what's best for the American public. This is because they're beholden to special interests. That is the luxury of a Trump candidacy. He is beholden to nobody. It is a fresh perspective. He only does what is best for our country. And you know what? Mr. Trump has been a big supporter of a number of candidates who have run for office in the past, including, David Bratt in Virginia helped him and has helped many, many candidates financially and in other ways. It's time to make sure we're holding these people accountable when they go to Washington. And it's time Trump puts people in a room and can work with them. Obama's out playing golf. Trump is there working with individuals every day to do what is best for our country. That's what we need as a leader in Washington, D.C.
All right, look, Corey Lewandowski, campaign manager, Donald J. Trump for president. We're out of time. I want to thank you for being with us. I'm the only media guy in the galaxy who is predicting Trump is going to win, and he's going to win New Hampshire.